Subscribe to Infidelity Tales Lab for more stories. Now let's begin this one. Chapter 1. The Perfect Life. Nathan Oliver stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his downtown office, watching the evening traffic crawl through the city streets below. At 38, he'd built everything he'd ever wanted: a successful career as the district attorney's lead prosecutor, a beautiful home in the suburbs, and a marriage that had survived the brutal hours his job demanded. His phone buzzed. A text from Kathy, his wife of 12 years. "Working late again? There's lasagna in the fridge. Love you." Nathan smiled, typing back quickly before returning to the case files spread across his mahogany desk. The Roman Sweeney case. It should have been straightforward. A wealthy real estate developer accused of murdering his business partner, Theodore Curran, over a failed shopping mall development. The evidence was circumstantial but damning. Sweeney's DNA under the victim's fingernails, his car spotted near the crime scene, threatening emails exchanged in the weeks before Curran's death. What made it strange was Sweeney himself. Nathan had prosecuted dozens of murderers. Some proclaimed innocence with tears and rage. Others, the truly guilty ones, hired expensive lawyers and fought every charge with procedural motions and character witnesses. Roman Sweeney did neither. He sat through the trial with an almost serene expression, his lawyer, a public defender named Jesse Skinner, struggling to mount any real defense. Sweeney refused to take the stand. He refused to provide an alibi. When Skinner tried to question the DNA evidence's chain of custody, Sweeney actually leaned over and whispered something that made his own lawyer go quiet. Nathan had prosecuted the case aggressively, laying out a narrative of greed and violence that convinced the jury in less than 4 hours. The death penalty followed. Virginia still executed prisoners, and Theodore Curran's widow had testified with such raw grief that even the most liberal jury members couldn't deny her justice. That was 3 years ago. Tomorrow, Roman Sweeney would die. Nathan gathered his files, shut down his computer, and headed home. The drive took 40 minutes through suburbs that gradually became more affluent. His house, a 2-story colonial with white pillars, sat on a quiet cul-de-sac. Kathy's SUV was in the driveway. He found her in the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of wine. Even after 12 years, she could still make his breath catch. Tall and elegant, with dark hair that fell past her shoulders, Kathy Oliver had been an art gallery manager when they met. Now she ran her own interior design business, though Nathan noticed she'd been taking fewer clients lately. "Hey, stranger," she said, smiling but not quite meeting his eyes. "How was your day?" "Long. The Sweeney execution is tomorrow." Nathan loosened his tie, grabbing a beer from the fridge. "I always hate the execution days. Do you ever wonder if he got it wrong?" Kathy asked, her voice careful. Nathan looked at her, surprised by the question. "About Sweeney?" "No. The evidence was solid. He was guilty, but he never defended himself. Don't you think that's strange? Some people accept their fate. Or maybe he just knew there was no way out." Nathan took a long drink. "Why the sudden interest?" Kathy shrugged, turning away. "Just seems sad, that's all. Someone dying tomorrow." They ate dinner in relative silence, the television filling the void with mindless noise. Nathan tried to remember the last time they'd really talked. Not about schedules or bills, but about life, dreams, the things that had made them fall in love. After dinner, Kathy claimed a headache and went upstairs early. Nathan stayed down, nursing another beer and flipping through case notes he'd read 100 times. Something nagged at him about the Sweeney case had nagged at him for 3 years, but he couldn't articulate what. The perfect conviction had felt too easy. Chapter 2. The Execution. Greensville Correctional Center squatted like a concrete tombstone against the gray Virginia morning. Nathan arrived at 8, 2 hours before the scheduled execution. As the prosecutor who'd won the conviction, he was expected to witness. The warden, a grizzled veteran named Wilson Daniels, met him at the entrance. "Oliver, thought you might not show." "I always show," Nathan said. It was true. He believed in accountability, his own as much as the condemned's. They went through security, past guards with dead eyes who'd seen too many men die. The execution chamber was sterile and cold, with the gurney visible through reinforced glass. A handful of witnesses were already present. Theodore Curran's widow, Elvira Curran, her face hardened by 3 years of grief, 2 reporters, and Jesse Skinner, Sweeney's public defender, who looked like he hadn't slept in days. "He asked to see you," Skinner said quietly to Nathan. "Before they bring him in." Nathan frowned. "That's unusual. Everything about this case has been unusual, counselor. You know that." Against his better judgment, Nathan followed a guard to a small viewing room. Roman Sweeney sat on the other side of bulletproof glass, wearing prison whites, his hands cuffed. At 43, he'd aged dramatically since the trial. Gray hair, deep lines around his eyes, but that unsettling calm remained. "Mr. Oliver," Sweeney said, his voice crackling through the intercom. "Thank you for coming. You wanted to see me? I wanted to tell you something. In my cell, there's a box. Small, cardboard, addressed to you. The warden has already cleared it." Sweeney's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "When you open it, you'll understand why I never defended myself." Nathan felt ice in his veins. "What's in the box?" "The truth. Everything you think you know, about me, about Theodore Curran, about your perfect conviction. It's wrong. Or rather, it's only half the story." Sweeney leaned forward. "I'm guilty, Nathan. Don't misunderstand that. But not of what you think. Then why not defend yourself? Why go to your death for something you didn't do? Because some things are worth dying for. And some people deserve to think they've won." Sweeney's smile widened. "You'll see. Open the box, Nathan. Then decide if justice was really served." The guard signal time was up. Nathan stood, his mind racing with questions, but Sweeney had already turned away, peaceful and resigned. 10:15 a.m. Roman Sweeney was strapped to the gurney. The warden asked for last words. "I have no regrets," Sweeney said, looking directly at Nathan through the glass. "Remember the box, prosecutor. Remember what I gave up." The chemicals flowed. Sweeney's eyes closed. 3 minutes later, the doctor pronounced him dead. Nathan stumbled out of the viewing room, past Elvira Curran, who was sobbing in relief, past reporters already typing on their phones. He found Warden Daniels in his office. "The box Sweeney mentioned. I need it." Daniels retrieved a small cardboard package from his safe, sealed with evidence tape. "Already logged it out. It's yours." Nathan took it to his car, his hands shaking. The box was light, maybe a pound. His name was written in Sweeney's neat handwriting across the top. He drove to a rest stop off I-95, parked in the far corner of the lot, and opened the box. Inside were 3 items: a burner phone, a USB drive, and a handwritten letter. Nathan read the letter first. "Dear Nathan, by the time you read this, I'll be dead. You convicted me of murdering Theodore Curran, and you believed you were serving justice. You weren't. Theodore Curran is very much alive, living under the name Saul Riggs in Charleston, South Carolina. The body you found? A drifter named Owen Sawyer we paid to stage his own death. The DNA under his fingernails? Mine, from a staged fight weeks earlier. But that's not the important part. The important part is why we faked Theodore's death. It wasn't about money or business. It was about her. Your wife, Kathy. She and Theodore have been lovers for 5 years. They planned it all, the fake death, framing me, even the emotional testimony from Elvira Curran, who's actually Theodore's sister, Janet Valentine. I loved Kathy once too, before you. She promised me the world, then left me for you when your career took off. Theodore came after me. The 3 of them hatched this plan, get me convicted and executed, collect on Theodore's life insurance, and live happily ever after. They picked murder because they knew it would be death penalty eligible. They wanted me dead. The USB contains video recordings of their planning sessions, financial transfers, and explicit footage of Kathy and Theodore together. The phone has text messages spanning years. I could have defended myself. I could have exposed them. But I realized something better. I could give you the gift I never got. The truth. I'm dying anyway, Nathan. Terminal cancer. 6 months, maybe. So I made a choice. I took their punishment, let them think they'd won, and gave you the weapon to destroy them. You're a good man, Nathan. Better than me. You deserve to know who you've been sleeping next to for 12 years. What you do with this information is up to you. But know that Theodore Curran is guilty of far more than faking his death. The USB will show you crimes that would put him away for life. Trafficking, extortion, real murders. He's been operating through shell companies under his new identity. Kathy knew everything. She helped. I'm guilty of many things, but not of taking Theodore's life. Still, I accept my fate. Consider this my final act of revenge. Not against you, but against them. Roman Sweeney. Nathan sat in his car, the letter trembling in his hands, his entire world fracturing around him. 12 years. 5 of them a lie. He plugged the USB into his laptop, and the files opened like doors to hell. Chapter 3. The Unraveling. Nathan watched every video, read every document, traced everhy financial transaction. Hours passed in that parking lot. The afternoon fading to evening, his coffee growing cold, his phone buzzing with missed calls from Kathy he couldn't bring himself to answer. The evidence was devastating and meticulous. Video from 4 months before the murder. Kathy, Theodore, and a woman Nathan now knew was Janet Valentine, sitting in a hotel room planning every detail. Kathy's voice, bright and animated, suggesting they use Roman because he's still pathetically in love with me. He'll be an easy target. Financial records showing Theodore Curran had indeed taken out a massive life insurance policy, but not for Elvira. The beneficiary was a shell company traced back to Kathy through 3 offshore accounts. Photos of Owen Sawyer, the homeless drifter they'd paid $50,000 to play a corpse. Medical examiner's reports Nathan had never questioned, now obviously forged. The victim's dental records matched Sawyer's from a free clinic in Richmond, not Curran's expensive dentist in Fairfax. And the explicit videos of Kathy with Theodore, time-stamped and geotagged, some as recent as 2 weeks ago. Hotels, their house, when Nathan worked late, even the back seat of Theodore's BMW in their own driveway. Nathan's hands clenched into fists. The betrayal felt physical, a burning coal in his chest. But beneath the pain, something colder emerged. Calculation. Roman Sweeney had handed him a gift, yes, but also a challenge. What would Nathan do with the truth? The prosecutor in him wanted to march straight to the police, have them all arrested. But Nathan was smart enough to see the complications. He'd been the prosecutor on the original case. Any revelation that it was all fabricated would destroy his career, possibly land him in legal jeopardy for prosecutorial misconduct, even if he'd been duped. The state had executed an innocent man, technically, since Sweeney hadn't murdered Curran, based on evidence Nathan had presented. His reputation would be annihilated. Every case he'd ever won would be questioned. Defense attorneys would have a field day, and Theodore Curran, living free under a new identity, would hire the best lawyers money could buy. With Sweeney dead and Nathan's credibility destroyed, they might actually walk. No, the legal system had already failed. It was time for something else. Nathan Oliver had spent 15 years putting criminals behind bars through legal means. He knew the law inside and out, which meant he also knew exactly how to operate outside it. He drove home at 9 p.m., his mind eerily calm. The house was dark except for the living room. Kathy sat on the couch, wine glass in hand, some reality show playing on mute. You finally answer your phone, and it's just to say you'll be late, she said, irritation in her voice. The execution was this morning, Nathan. Where have you been? He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. How had he missed it? The small signs he dismissed as work stress or natural drift. The way she'd stopped asking about his cases. The mysterious girls' weekends every month. The new lingerie he'd assumed was for him. I had some things to think about, Nathan said evenly. The execution was strange. Sweeney said something to me before he died. He watched her face carefully. A flicker of concern, quickly masked. Oh, what did he say? Nothing important. Just the ramblings of a guilty man. Nathan walked to the kitchen, poured himself a drink. I'm exhausted. I'm going to bed. Nathan. Kathy followed him. Are you okay? You seem off. He turned, gave her his best tired smile. Just a hard day, honey. Watching someone die never gets easier. She hugged him, and it took every ounce of Nathan's control not to recoil. Her perfume, expensive, something she'd started wearing about 3 years ago, smelled like betrayal. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too," he lied. That night, sleeping beside her for the last time, Nathan Oliver made his decision. Roman Sweeney had given him the evidence, but Nathan would write the ending. And unlike the legal system with its rules and procedures and rights for the accused, Nathan's justice would be absolute. They wanted him to be the fool, the cuckolded husband who'd unknowingly helped them murder an innocent man. Instead, he'd be their nightmare. Chapter 4. Building the Case. Nathan took a personal leave from the DA's office, 3 weeks, citing emotional stress from the execution. His boss, a veteran prosecutor named Ed Wilkinson, granted it immediately. "You've been pushing yourself too hard, Oliver. Take time. Decompress." If only Ed knew what Nathan was really planning. The first step was confirming everything in Sweeney's evidence. As much as Nathan wanted to believe it all, he was a prosecutor. He knew evidence could be fabricated, manipulated. He needed independent verification. He started with Theodore Curran, now Saul Riggs. The USB contained an address in Charleston, 1847, Trad Street, a historic district property worth over $1 million. Nathan drove down, checked into a hotel under a fake name, and began surveillance. The man who emerged from the house 3 days into the stakeout was unmistakably Theodore Curran. Older, with a beard and glasses, but the same tall frame, the same confident stride. Nathan photographed him, followed him to a yacht club where Saul Riggs was apparently a member, tracked him to business meetings downtown. Curran's new identity was well-constructed. Business licenses for an import-export company, tax returns, even a lease on the Trad Street property. Someone had done professional work. Nathan suspected Janet Valentine, who according to Sweeney's files had connections to forgers and identity specialists from her time working in crisis management for wealthy clients. Over a week, Nathan documented Curran's routines. Morning coffee at a bakery on King Street, gym 3 times weekly, business meetings at various hotels and offices. But most importantly, Nathan tracked his communications. Using equipment he'd confiscated from previous cases, technically illegal for personal use. But Nathan was past caring about technicalities. He cloned Curran's phone and intercepted his messages. Jackpot! Theodore was in constant contact with Kathy, though they used burner phones and code names. Elaine, Kathy, and Marcus Theodore discussed finances, expressed their love, and occasionally mentioned the payout, presumably the life insurance money they were still waiting to collect. Apparently, there was a mandatory waiting period and investigation for death penalty cases. But there was something else in the messages. Something darker. Theodore referenced merchandise shipments and clients in Miami. He mentioned needing to clean up the Sawyer problem. Owen Sawyer, the homeless man they'd used as a corpse. Nathan dug deeper into the financial records on the USB. Theodore Curran, operating as Saul Riggs, was running a human trafficking operation. Young women from Eastern Europe, brought into Charleston through his import company, then distributed to various clients along the East Coast. Roman had mentioned this in his letter. Real crimes, real victims. Nathan felt the weight of it. He'd spent his career prosecuting men like Curran, and here he'd been sleeping next to his accomplice. One of the financial documents showed payments to a J. Valentine for consultation services. Nathan decided his next stop was finding Janet Valentine. Chapter 5. The Sister's Secret. Janet Valentine proved harder to track than Theodore. After the trial, Elvira Curran had collected sympathy and attention as the grieving widow, given interviews about justice and closure. Then she'd vanished. Nathan used his prosecutorial access. He still had clearance during his leave to pull records. Janet Valentine had a history. Arrests for fraud in her 20s, dismissed charges of insurance scams, connections to organized crime in Atlantic City. She cleaned up her act publicly around the time she'd taken on the Elvira Curran identity, but her past painted a picture of a professional con artist. He found her in Richmond, ironically less than 2 hours from where she'd testified at Roman Sweeney's trial. She was living under yet another name, Hope Johns, running a grief counseling service for crime victims. The audacity was stunning. Nathan approached it differently with Janet. He couldn't surveil her the same way. She was too cautious, too trained in spotting tails. Instead, he used a different tactic. He hired Brett Davidson, a private investigator he'd worked with on previous cases. Brett was ex-FBI, morally flexible and discreet. Nathan gave him Janet's photo and current address. "I need everything on her. Finances, contacts, activities, vulnerabilities. Don't approach her. Just observe and document." Brett delivered within 5 days. Janet Valentine was deeply in debt. Her grief counseling service was a front. She barely saw clients. She was gambling badly at a casino in Charles City. She'd racked up $70,000 in markers she couldn't pay. The casino, Nathan learned, was owned by some very unforgiving people. She was also still in contact with Theodore and Kathy, though less frequently. Brett had recorded a phone conversation where Janet demanded more money, threatening to tell everything if they didn't pay her debts. Leverage. Nathan smiled, but he needed more than just the 3 conspirators. Roman's evidence showed a network. The doctors who'd falsified autopsy reports, the witnesses who'd provided false testimony about seeing Roman near the crime scene, the insurance investigators who'd been paid to expedite Theodore's death claim. Nathan spent 2 weeks methodically identifying each player. Dr. Alan Redd, the medical examiner who'd signed off on Owen Sawyer's body as Theodore Currence. Ron Hudson and Wayne Dawson, 2 men who'd testified they'd seen Roman's car near the supposed murder location. Barb Rollins, the insurance agent processing the death benefit claim. Each had received payments from shell companies Nathan traced back to Theodore's network. Each was complicit, and each would face Nathan's justice. One afternoon, Nathan received a call from Kathy. He'd been avoiding her, claiming he was working through things and needed space. She'd been understanding at first, but now her patience was wearing thin. "Nathan, this is ridiculous. You've barely been home in 2 weeks. What's going on? I told you I need time." "Time for what? You're being weird and distant. Are you seeing someone?" Her voice carried an almost amusing irony. "I'm working on something. A project. I'll be home soon, I promise." After he hung up, Nathan stared at his phone. The performance was exhausting, pretending everything was normal. But he needed more time. The plan, crystallizing in his mind, required perfect timing. Roman Sweeney had given him the evidence. Now Nathan needed to become judge, jury, and executioner. But unlike Roman, Nathan wasn't going to accept defeat. He was going to make them all pay, legally impossible to prosecute without destroying himself, but not impossible to punish. Nathan thought about his years as a prosecutor. He'd always believed in the system, in justice through proper channels. But the system had executed an innocent man while real criminals walked free. Roman had seen that, had made the ultimate sacrifice to expose it. Now it was Nathan's turn. He would honor Roman's gift by doing what the law couldn't. Destroy them all. Chapter 6. The trap is set. Nathan returned to Charleston with a plan that would have terrified the man he'd been a month ago. But grief, betrayal, and rage had transformed him into something else. Something colder. Something dangerous. Phase 1. Theodore Current. Nathan had spent 3 weeks learning everything about Theodore's operation. The trafficking network operated through a front company, Riggs Import and Maritime. Young women arrived in shipping containers labeled as textile samples, were processed through a warehouse near the port, then distributed to various buyers. It was efficient, brutal, and had been operating for at least 3 years, meaning Kathy had known about it the entire time. Nathan made copies of everything on Roman's USB, encrypted them, and sent them to 3 separate secure locations. Insurance. Then he hacked into Theodore's business email. The password was embarrassingly simple, Kathy 2019, and began drafting messages. The first email went to Theodore's primary client, a man in Miami who apparently purchased women regularly. Nathan, posing as Theodore, dramatically increased the prices and changed delivery terms to cash only, no electronic trail. The second email went to Theodore's supplier in Moldova, claiming the FBI was investigating and they needed to halt all shipments immediately. The third email, sent from a separate anonymous account, went to the Charleston Police Department's Human Trafficking Task Force. It contained limited information, just enough to make them start watching Riggs Import and Maritime, but not enough to raid. Not yet. Nathan wanted Theodore paranoid, scrambling, making mistakes. Phase 2. Janet Valentine. Nathan drove to Charles City and entered the casino where Janet had accumulated her debts. He found the casino manager, a hard-eyed man named Darren Pace who'd served time for assault before going semi-legitimate in the gambling business. "I want to pay off someone's markers," Nathan said, sliding a briefcase across the desk. Pace raised an eyebrow. "That's unusual." "Who?" "Hope Johns. I believe she owes you about $70,000. $73,500, Pace corrected, plus interest. Call it 80 even. And you are someone who wants a favor in return." Nathan opened the briefcase, showing cash. "I pay her debt. You tell her the debt is cleared, but she needs to call this number within 24 hours. Say it's about her brother." "Her brother's dead?" Pace said. "Supposedly." "Exactly." Nathan smiled. The next day, Janet called the number, a burner phone Nathan had purchased specifically for this. He disguised his voice slightly, added a hint of Southern accent. "Ms. Valentine, or should I say Ms. Johns? We need to talk about Theodore." "Who is this?" "Someone who knows what you did. Someone who knows about Owen Sawyer, about the trial, about everything. And someone who's willing to offer you a deal." Silence. "Then what kind of deal?" "Your freedom for your testimony. I have evidence that will send Theodore and Kathy to prison for life. But I need you to fill in the gaps, testify to the planning, the execution. Do that and you walk. Refuse, and I hand everything to the police with you named as a co-conspirator. The casino debt? Consider it a down payment on your cooperation. I need to think about it. You have 48 hours. After that, the deal expires." Nathan hung up. Janet would flip. He knew her type, self-preservation over loyalty. She'd been threatening Theodore and Kathy for more money anyway. This just gave her a better option. Phase 3, the evidence network. Nathan couldn't prosecute the others directly, Dr. Red, Ron Hudson, Wayne Dawson, Barb Rollins, without exposing the entire conspiracy and his own unwitting role. But he could make their lives very difficult. For Dr. Reed, Nathan sent anonymous complaints to the state medical board, detailing irregularities in death certificates. He included just enough specific examples, not mentioning the current case, to trigger an investigation. For Hudson and Dawson, the false witnesses, Nathan did something more creative. He hired Brett Davidson to approach them separately, posing as a documentary filmmaker, making a show about wrongful convictions, and wanted to interview witnesses from questionable cases. Brett was wired. If either man admitted to lying on the stand, even partially, Nathan would have evidence for perjury charges. Hudson cracked in the first interview, bragging drunk about how he'd been paid to remember seeing things for various trials. Brett got it all on tape. For Barb Rollins, the insurance agent, Nathan went directly to her employer, a major national insurance company. He sent anonymous evidence of her accepting bribes to expedite false claims. The company launched an internal investigation within days. Each piece was moving into position, but Nathan saved his most carefully planned revenge for last. Phase 4, Kathy. He returned home after 3 weeks, playing the role of a husband who'd worked through his execution trauma. Kathy greeted him with what looked like genuine relief. "Nathan, God, I was so worried. You were gone so long." "I know. I'm sorry. I just needed to clear my head." He hugged her, smelled Theodore on her skin, fought down the rage. "But I'm back now. And actually, I have a surprise for you." "A surprise?" "I've been doing some thinking about us. About our marriage. We've been drifting, and that's my fault. So I booked us a trip. Charleston. This weekend. A bed and breakfast in the historic district. Just you and me, reconnecting." He watched her face carefully. A flicker of panic, quickly hidden. "Charleston? That's sweet, but I have clients this weekend." "Cancel them. Please. This is important to me." She hesitated, calculating, probably trying to figure out if it was coincidence or if Nathan somehow knew. But she'd been playing this role for 5 years. She smiled, touched his face. "Okay, Charleston sounds perfect." Nathan smiled back and began the final countdown. Chapter 7. The Weekend in Charleston. The bed and breakfast was on Church Street, 3 blocks from Theodore's house on Trad. Nathan had chosen it deliberately. He'd also hired Brett Davidson and 2 other associates to maintain surveillance on Theodore's residence all weekend. Kathy was nervous. Nathan could see it in the way she checked her phone constantly, the tight smile she wore as they walked through Charleston's historic streets Friday evening. "Everything okay?" he asked over dinner at a waterfront restaurant. "Fine. Just work stuff. Turn the phone off. Just for tonight. Please." She did, reluctantly. Saturday morning, Nathan woke early. Kathy was still sleeping, her phone on the nightstand. He'd already installed spyware on it weeks ago, but he took a photo of her sleeping peacefully, the last peaceful moment she'd have. "I'm going for a run," he whispered. She murmured something incoherent. Nathan ran straight to Theodore's house. Brett was parked across the street in a surveillance van disguised as a plumber's truck. Status: target's inside. Alone. Been making calls all morning. Seems agitated. Good. Stay here. Things are about to get interesting. Nathan ran back to the bed and breakfast, showered, and woke Kathy with coffee. "I thought we could walk around, visit some galleries. Isn't there one you've mentioned before on King Street?" "Sure," Kathy said too quickly. They spent the day playing tourist. Kathy seemed to relax slightly, believing maybe Nathan really was just trying to reconnect. They had lunch at a cafe, visited a museum, walked along the waterfront. As sunset approached, Nathan steered them toward Trad Street. "The architecture here is amazing," he said casually. "Look at these houses." They walked past Theodore's address. Nathan saw Kathy's eyes flick toward it, saw her swallow hard. "You okay? You look pale. Just tired. Maybe we should head back." "In a minute. I want to show you something." Nathan pulled out his phone, opened a photo gallery, and showed her a picture he'd taken that morning. It was Theodore leaving his house. Kathy stopped walking, her face drained of all color. "Nathan, that's Theodore Curran," Nathan said calmly. "Or as he's calling himself now, Saul Riggs. Living 3 blocks from where we're staying. What a strange coincidence." "I don't know what." "Don't." Nathan's voice turned cold. "Don't insult me by lying now. I know everything, Kathy. About you and Theodore. About Roman Sweeney. About Owen Sawyer. About the fake murder and the trial and the execution of an innocent man." She stared at him, and he watched her mind race through options. Denial? Confession? "How long have you known?" she finally whispered. "Roman told me. Right before he died. He left me a box with all the evidence. Videos of you 3 planning everything. Financial records. Text messages. Everything." Tears formed in Kathy's eyes. "Nathan, please, let me explain." "Explain what? That you've been fucking another man for 5 years? That you helped frame someone for murder? That you were willing to let me convict an innocent man so you could collect insurance money?" Nathan's voice rose despite himself. "That you're married to a monster who traffics human beings, and you've known about it the whole time?" "Trafficking?" She looked genuinely confused. "What are you talking about?" "Theodore's import business. It's a front for human trafficking. You didn't know?" Nathan laughed bitterly. "My God, Kathy, you helped fake a man's death, but you drew the line at knowing about the trafficking? How noble." "I need to sit down," she said weakly. "No, you need to come with me." Nathan gripped her arm, not hard enough to hurt, but firmly enough she couldn't easily break away. "We're going to visit Theodore. Right now. The 3 of us are going to have a conversation." "Nathan, please, you don't understand. Move, or I call the police right here, right now, and you get arrested in public." She moved. Chapter 8. The Confrontation. Theodore opened the door with a drink in his hand, clearly not expecting visitors. When he saw Nathan and Kathy, the glass slipped from his fingers and shattered on the hardwood floor. "Hello, Theodore," Nathan said pleasantly, pushing past him into the house. "Or should I call you Saul? Nice place. The afterlife treats you well." Theodore recovered quickly. Nathan had to give him credit. "I don't know what you think you're doing, but this is breaking and entering. Please, save it." Nathan pulled out his phone, played a video. It was Theodore and Kathy in a hotel room, discussing the Sweeney problem and how they'd manipulate the evidence. Theodore's voice was clear. "The prosecutor's an idealist. He'll believe whatever we show him because he wants to believe in justice. The blood drained from Theodore's face. Sit down, Nathan said. Both of you. We're going to talk about justice. Real justice. They sat on an expensive leather couch. Nathan remained standing, pacing like he did in courtrooms when he was building toward a closing argument. Roman Sweeney was innocent of your murder, Theodore, because you're not dead. But he was guilty of loving the wrong woman. Nathan glanced at Kathy, who was crying silently. He had terminal cancer, 6 months to live. So he made a choice. He took your fall, let himself be executed. Also, he could give me the truth. What do you want? Theodore asked. His voice was steady, but Nathan saw fear in his eyes. What do I want? That's the question, isn't it? The prosecutor and me wants to haul you both to the police station right now. But that gets complicated. I'd have to admit I convicted an innocent man. My career would be destroyed. Every case I've won would be questioned. The state would face massive liability for a wrongful execution. Nathan leaned against the wall. And you'd hire expensive lawyers. You'd fight for years. Maybe you'd even beat some of the charges. After all, Roman's dead. Owen Sawyer's ashes were scattered. The evidence could be questioned. So what then? Kathy whispered. So I did what you taught me, Nathan said, looking at her. I thought outside the law. I became creative. And I realized the law isn't the only kind of justice. He pulled out a laptop, set it on the coffee table, and opened files. Theodore, your trafficking operation is about to collapse. I've sent evidence to the FBI, Interpol, and local police. By Monday morning, federal agents will raid your warehouse. Your suppliers have been warned off. Your clients think you're a snitch. Even if you run right now, they'll find you. Theodore's face went gray. Kathy, the life insurance claim you've been waiting on? It's been red flagged for fraud. When Theodore gets arrested for trafficking, investigators will look into his death more closely. They'll discover Owen Sawyer's real identity. You'll be charged with insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, and accessory to human trafficking. You can't do this, Theodore said, but there was no conviction in his voice. I already have. Janet Valentine, Theodore's sister, your co-conspirator, has agreed to testify against both of you in exchange for immunity. The medical examiner who falsified the autopsy is under investigation. Your false witnesses have been recorded admitting to perjury. Every person you roped into this is turning on you. Nathan closed the laptop. You wanted to play games with the justice system? Congratulations. You won that round. Roman Sweeney died. But now it's my turn, and I play to win. What do you want from us? Kathy asked again, her voice breaking. Nathan, please, I'm your wife. You were my wife, Nathan said coldly. Now you're just a criminal who happened to share my bed. What do I want? I want you to know what's coming. I want you to feel the fear Roman felt when he was strapped to that gurney. I want you to spend every remaining free moment dreading the knock on the door. He walked to the exit, paused. You wanted me to be the fool, the stupid prosecutor you manipulated. But Roman gave me something better than revenge. He gave me the truth, and the truth is going to destroy you both. Nathan left them sitting there, stunned and terrified, and walked out into the Charleston night. Chapter 9. Justice Served. Monday morning, the raids happened exactly as Nathan had orchestrated. FBI agents, working with Charleston PD and Homeland Security, descended on Riggs Import and Maritime. They found 3 women locked in a back warehouse room, all under 25, all from Moldova. They found records of dozens more. They found bank accounts, shell companies, and communications with buyers. Theodore Curran, Saul Riggs, was arrested at his home. By noon, every news station in the Southeast was covering the story of the dead man who'd been running a trafficking ring. The investigation naturally expanded. When police started looking into Theodore's supposed death, they discovered the inconsistencies. Dental records that didn't quite match. A body that had been cremated suspiciously quickly. Anonymous tips from Nathan pointed them toward Owen Sawyer's real identity. Janet Valentine, as promised, provided detailed testimony about the conspiracy. She described the planning meetings, the payments, the deliberate framing of Roman Sweeney. She gave them Kathy's involvement, the insurance scheme, everything. Kathy was arrested Wednesday at their home. Nathan wasn't there, He moved out over the weekend, taking a temporary apartment downtown. He watched the news coverage with grim satisfaction. His phone rang. Ed Wilkinson. Nathan, Jesus Christ. Have you seen the news about the Sweeney case? I have. This is a disaster. We executed an innocent man. The governor's office is calling. The AG wants a full review of your cases. I know, Ed. I'm prepared for it. I was manipulated by sophisticated criminals. I presented the evidence in good faith. Every step I took was procedurally correct based on what I knew at the time. There was a pause. You sound different. Calm. I've had time to process it. I'll cooperate fully with any investigation. But Ed, they framed an innocent man and got him executed. That's on them, not on me. The press is going to crucify you. Let them. I'll survive. And when this is done, I'll go back to putting criminals away. Real criminals this time. The following weeks were brutal. Nathan endured investigations, media scrutiny, and public criticism. But he'd been careful. Everything he'd done as a prosecutor had been by the book. He'd been a victim of the conspiracy, not a participant. Roman Sweeney's name was posthumously cleared. The governor issued a formal apology. Victim advocates called for reforms. Theodore Kern was charged with human trafficking, fraud, conspiracy, and a dozen other crimes. His trafficking network led to arrests in 5 states. He was facing life without parole. Kathy Oliver was charged with conspiracy to commit fraud accessory to trafficking and obstruction of justice. Her lawyers tried to paint her as another victim, manipulated by Theodore, but Janet's testimony and the videos of Kathy enthusiastically planning the frame job destroyed that defense. Dr. Alan Reed lost his medical license. Ron Hudson and Wayne Dawson were charged with perjury. Barb Rollins was fired and indicted for insurance fraud. One by one, everyone involved in the conspiracy faced consequences. 6 months after the Charleston confrontation, Nathan sat in a courtroom, not as the prosecutor this time, but as a witness. Theodore's trial. He took the stand and described opening Roman's box, discovering the evidence, realizing he'd been used. Theodore stared at him from the defense table with pure hatred. When the jury came back, guilty on all counts, Nathan felt something close to peace. After the verdict, Nathan visited Roman Sweeney's grave. It was in a small cemetery outside Richmond, a simple headstone that read, Roman Sweeney. He died for truth. Nathan placed flowers and stood silently. You could have saved yourself, Nathan said quietly. You could have exposed them, fought the charges, lived your last months as a free man. But you chose this instead. You chose to give me the truth, even if it meant dying for it. The wind rustled through the trees. I don't know if you'd approve of what I did. Some of it was illegal. Some of it was manipulative. I became the kind of person I used to prosecute. Nathan paused. But they're paying now, every single one of them. And you've been exonerated. That's something. He turned to leave, then looked back. Thank you, Roman, for the gift, for trusting me to finish what you started. Nathan Oliver walked back to his car, climbed in, and drove toward a future without Kathy, without the illusions of his perfect life, but with something more valuable, the truth, and his own hard-won justice. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.